The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings. So here's what came out of today's hearing. Number one, the government acknowledged that they offered Combs a plea deal. Combs acknowledged he has no interest in taking that. They're going to move forward with the trial. They also talked about the jury selection process, which one legal expert I spoke to said is probably the most important thing that you want to pay close attention to before the actual trial starts. And thirdly, we learned that Combs will be adding 2 new attorneys to his defense team. And just to recap, Combs, who is 55 years old, could spend the rest of his life behind bars if convicted on sex trafficking and racketeering. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katersky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted. The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to sexually exploit both women and men for decades. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges that accused him of coercing alleged victims into prolonged, drug-fueled sexual activity that he called freak-offs and threatening them into silence.
Jury selection is underway right now. On Monday and Tuesday, the judge assembled a pool of 35 potential jurors. 10 more jurors are going to be added later, until a total of 45 jurors are ready for the 2-month trial. Jurors are being asked if they are comfortable watching Diddy's freak-off tapes in court. These tapes are a central piece of evidence and are going to incriminate a lot of people.
The other thing I wanted to ask you that I found fascinating is that Diddy reportedly yesterday asked that judge for a bathroom break, telling the judge, "I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm a little nervous today." Were you surprised that he admitted that? And what do you think that reveals about him ahead of opening statements?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The fact that we are going to trial in under a year from when a defendant is arrested and indicted at the federal level doesn't happen. But Combs has been pushing towards this trial date. He doesn't want to spend one more day behind in federal lockup. Having said that, you're now at this case, and the government, this is the Southern District of New York, they don't move forward with the case unless they feel they have the goods. He's looking at not only life in prison, and the maximum charge, but potentially decades in prison. The third charge that he's facing, transportation to engage in prostitution, that can carry 10 years in prison, and some argue that's the most straightforward charge to actually convict him on. So I think he's feeling the weight of what's happening. Jury selection, a panel of his peers coming in to decide his fate. It is real right now for him.
Of course, they're all going to know who Sean Combs is, but they're going to need to find jurors who, despite the fact that they are familiar with Diddy, they still can be fair.
Prosecutors say Combs turned his significant business interests into a criminal enterprise to plan elaborate sex parties, including drug-fueled marathons where women were coerced into sex and then threatened if they didn't keep quiet. The jury pool filling out a 17-page questionnaire, answering questions about their impartiality amid warnings the evidence is graphic and sexually explicit.
The judge has drilled down on some of those questions that they answered in the questionnaire to see whether or not they had any issues to serving in this trial.
Diddy's attorneys have confirmed that the tapes will be played in court. These tapes were collected from Diddy's Miami mansion during the raids last year. The FBI is decrypting the data right now, and allegedly there is hundreds of hours worth of footage. Most likely the prosecutors are only going to play certain tapes. They're trying to leverage more people into testifying for them by using the tapes.